It's the Scotty Myers Show.
Hey, welcome to this week's edition of the show. Hopefully, you're having a fantastic week so far. I'm your host, Scotty Myers, and today, I just wanted to talk about this first. Today, rough day for me. On the show, I've talked about it before, that I have some depression issues, and earlier today, man, oh man, was my brain playing tricks on me. Just one of those days where that little voice in your head was really loud. You know, I was at work. It was very, very slow, so I kind of had a lot of time to think, which is always a dangerous thing. And basically that kind of depression voice was really going and questioning everything. Every decision that I've made recently, the little voice in my head was going on and on and on. And, you know, did you do the right thing? Why are you doing that? You know, and just really making me doubt myself and even to the point somewhat my value, where some of the questions were going. It was not good. And, you know, luckily I've been dealing with this long enough and I've gone to therapy long enough that I somewhat have the tools to help block it, or I can at least recognize it and just kind of get through it, which is really what I had to do today. None of the tools that I normally use were working, and then where I was at work, I couldn't go to the gym or go for a run or something like that, because sometimes that will really help clear it. So I just had to kind of ride it out today, and it was tough. Very, very tough. And sometimes that's the only option, is to ride it out. But managed to do that, and now feel a whole lot better. I can still hear the little voice back there right now as I record this, but it's definitely, the volume's been turned way, way down from where it was earlier today. So the reason why I share this is because in the moment, even today, in the moment, I was like, man, this is never going to end. And it felt very frustrating, and I started to feel a little defeated. And, you know, now here I sit, I'm recording this, stoked to talk to all you guys like I get to do every week. And the voice is, like I say, the volume's turned down. And sometimes it's just a little bit of time is needed. And I say, I'm very fortunate. I've learned some great tools and ways to recognize when my brain is just really fucking with me. But if I had let myself sit in that mindset and didn't recognize it and work to push through it, could have stayed the whole day there. And you know, so just sharing it with you, because sometimes in that moment it can seem like that is it. It's not a moment, it's an eternity. And that's not the case. It is a moment, and it shall pass. And then, you know, you can move on to the next moment, which may be better. Maybe it's still going to be a struggle, but it's a new moment and a new chance. So just wanted to throw that out there for anybody that knows anybody or themselves dealing with some mental health issues. Just do what you can to reach through them. If you ever need to reach out to me, hit me up on the socials, and I'll gladly talk to you if you need a voice, or an ear, I should say, to listen to. So let's try to get into some fun stuff here as I record this. I am less than a week away from heading on down to Florida, my home away from home, at the Walt Disney World Resort, because on August 29th, we've talked about it on the show before, Galaxy's Edge will be opening in Florida, and I am stoked to be going down. I'm going to be there day one, in the crowd, in the thick of it. I bought a fancy new microphone that plugs into my phone, so I'll have better audio for the videos that I'm going to be shooting while I'm in the crowd and in Galaxy's Edge, and a few other things I'm going to do in the park as well. I've been going to the parks for so long. A lot of people have asked me when they're going for the first time, or they have friends that are going, like, what should I do? You know, what are some tips that you have? So I'm going to do some videos that have some tips and tricks and stuff like that I use when I go to the parks as well. But a lot of it's going to be focused on Galaxy's Edge and how that is going to change Hollywood studios, and how cool, hopefully, Galaxy's Edge turns out to be. I can't imagine it not being great, but I really am looking forward to it. Can't wait to get on that Millennium Falcon ride. Like that, every child of any age that has ever watched a Star Wars movie has fantasized and dreamed about flying the Millennium Falcon. And the fact that that is now a thing, and that the dream of 7-year-old Scotty is going to come true, is amazing to me. Yes, I'm in my 40s, but that doesn't matter. The dream of that child still lives within me and will be coming true thanks to Galaxy's Edge. So even if I get nothing else out of it, that alone to me is going to be worth it. And I do have a reservation in the Cantina for Friday. I'm going to spend a couple of days in Galaxy's Edge, so I'm going to try to get in as much as I can while I'm down there. But if you're not following us on the YouTube channel, I highly recommend that you do that. It's the Scotty Mars Show on YouTube. You can get the podcast there, but I know you're listening to it through your subscription, wherever you do that. But follow us over there on the YouTube channel. Subscribe now so that you don't miss any of the videos. Now, as far as the podcasting plan goes for next week, there's going to be 2 episodes next week. I'm going to hit you with a regular edition Thursday morning, like we always do. It'll be coming to you from Disney. I'll definitely have some Galaxy's Edge stuff in there because they're doing a dedication ceremony on Wednesday night that I'm going to try to slide myself into. But the bulk of the Galaxy's Edge stuff will come in a special edition of the podcast that will drop on Friday. That's the plan. I'm hoping to get in there first thing Thursday morning, do everything, have the Star Wars fireworks that night, basically immerse myself in Star Wars at Hollywood Studios for the day, and then hit you with a full report on Friday morning. And then, of course, the YouTube channel stuff, some of that's going to be live, some of that will be going up as it happens or shortly after it happens. So that will be happening periodically throughout Thursday, throughout the day. So that's kind of the plan of attack for next week. Really, really excited to get back down to Disney and enjoy Galaxy's Edge. So on to some of the news that has happened over the last few days. If you are a football fan, you know the NFL season is just a couple weeks away. However, there is another football league that's headed our way. We had the AAFL, the Alliance of American Football, and it died less than a season in, which was kind of sad because it actually had some decent players and some of the games weren't too bad. But the XFL is returning. Now, you may remember the XFL from back in the day, the brainchild of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the man behind World Wrestling Entertainment. And the XFL was a little odd. I remember watching it when it first came out and enjoying it. The football was meh. You know, it was all right. It wasn't great, but it was meh. But they did some cool things in the league, some things that the NFL has adopted, like that overhead cam shot down the middle of the field on a kickoff. The XFL was doing that first. And then some leagues now do, like Major League Baseball has done nickname weekend where the players get to put their nicknames on their jersey. The XFL did that first. So some of the things they did, other sports have adopted, but overall the product was not good enough to sustain itself. So I'm curious to see how this second coming of the XFL is going to be any different or any different than any other football league that we've seen come and go because of the dominance of the NFL. The NFL is a beast that right now that cannot be slain. It is Godzilla, king of the monsters. There is nothing bigger, badder, meaner, leaner than the NFL. It is the epitome of a well-oiled machine, even with all their fuck-ups. And they have many. But even despite all that, they dominate the sports landscape in North America for the most part. And to have another football league, yeah, you're not going to be competing with them on a weekly basis, but you're always going to be compared to them. And as soon as people are tuning into your product and they go, not as good as the NFL, then they start to tune out. But we found out the first 8 teams of the XFL today. And man, these names are just they're so stereotypical football. And the logos are god-awful. I was really hoping, I'm a logo guy. I love it when teams have great logos. These are bad. So you get the Dallas Renegades. Okay, sure, because Texas, right? And the Renegades logo is that of a bandit. Like cowboy hat, scarf over his lower face, red eyes. Looks almost demonic, to be honest. Houston also has a team, the Roughnecks. It's an oil spout, well, with an H in it for Houston. Okay, see, but like not really inspired. The Los Angeles Wildcats. What? Find me a league on the planet that at some point has not had a Wildcat in it. And it turns out most of the time they're pretty tame. New York Guardians. The logo looks somewhat gargoyle-ish, so I'm assuming that's what they mean there. The St. Louis Battlehawks. Their logo is a sword with a couple of wings coming out of it. Sure. I don't think of that when I think of St. Louis, but okay, fine. The Seattle Dragons. Again, whatever. I don't really think of dragons when I think of Seattle, but fine. Tampa Bay Vipers. They may have the best logo in the entire league. It's simply a V, but they put the two fangs in the V, so I was like, okay. And the Washington Defenders. And their logo is just, it looks like a shield with some lightning bolts on it. The logos really look like somebody's first day with Photoshop. And I'm not saying I can do any better. I can't do Photoshop. But seriously, if you want to compete with the NFL, you got to up your game. So that's your starting lineup for the XFL. And it is, they're going to have their draft in October, which nobody's going to pay attention to because you're talking about the middle of the NFL season. Mini camps are going to start in December, training camps in January, and then they'll kick off the league shortly after the Super Bowl in February 2020. So they're following the same blueprint almost that the AAFL followed. We'll just see if we can get a whole season out of the XFL. I think if they bring anything back from the old XFL that could help them, it was somewhat the locker rooms. They would go in the locker rooms and you hear players talking and players talking to cheerleaders, and it was all scripted shit. It really was. It was the cheesiest soap opera level shit. Bring that back. Bring back the B-movie level romances, and maybe that will set you apart, because it's the only thing that was memorable. That and the scramble for kickoffs. That's all we remember about the XFL. Sometimes you make a bet with your friends, and it's a meaningless bet. You'll say like, hey, I bet you $100 you can't eat all that pizza. And then he does, and nobody expects you to pay him $100. You may just get him a Tums or something like that because his tummy's going to hurt. Well, in New Zealand, one fella took a bet very, very seriously. A flat earther might not be the craziest person in the story. I'll let you decide at the end. So there's this 36-year-old guy named Jamie who had dinner with his friend Louie. They've known each other for years. Now, Louie is a flat earther. He thinks the world is just a big flat level thing. Then he said he'd bet Jamie 10 grand that it was flat. So Jamie said, sure. So Louis says, here, look, all the proof about the earth being round, massive conspiracy. He tries to convince him blah, blah, blah. There's no way he can prove the earth is flat because it isn't. So Jamie sits there and goes, hey man, you owe me 10 grand. And Louis refused to pay. So here's where Jamie goes to the kind of not so sane column. He threatened to kill Louis and his father with a crossbow if he didn't pay him the money. I don't know why he's rolling around with a crossbow, but regardless. So Louis, the flat earth guy that you think wouldn't have this much logical sense, called the cops. And they've been dealing with it in court for a while. A judge finally just said, fuck this. Dismissed all the charges. No one has to pay the 10 grand. So that's it. This Jamie fella, no trouble for threatening to kill two people over the flat earth conspiracy. So you have to figure out now which one of these two people is on the, we got to watch them list. Is it the flat earth guy? Or is it the guy that threatens to kill two people? Now, if you need a little bit more evidence, Louis, he also thinks the moon landings are fake. Albert Einstein was a plant by the government, and he, falls into a bunch of other conspiracy theories. So that's your decision. I still might go with the guy that tries to kill threatens to kill two people with a crossbow. That's really nuts. The other stuff, it's nuts, but it's harmless nuts. On to the off story of the week. Usually it's a story. You read the headline. It makes you say, oh, for fuck's sake. This one, a headline, but it's also just because these products are coming. And this is generally for almost any season, holiday themed item now, anything like that. So I see on the internet that Starbucks has announced when the pumpkin spice latte is coming this year, and it will be coming on August 27th. So next week, you'll be able to get your PSL on. Now, I am not a pumpkin spice person. There's a couple of pumpkin beers that I've had that I don't mind, but overall, not big on pumpkin. Never liked pumpkin pie. It's just not for me. You open up a pumpkin, it looks like you cut open somebody's intestinal tract. It just doesn't seem enticing to me. So I'm not hating on pumpkin spice per se. If you dig it, you dig it. I eat a lot of things that people look at me and go, you're crazy for eating that. So I shall not pass judgment on your taste buds. What I shall pass judgment on, and what makes me scream offs, is that no longer can we wait for the proper time of year for these things. The pumpkin spice latte and the other plethora of pumpkin spice items that come are all synonymous with fall. But yet, it is coming out next week. August still very much feels like summer to me. It's the same as when, the Christmas stuff starts to creep into the Halloween decorations. It's like, can we have what we have? My therapist sometimes would say to me that I don't spend enough time in life stopping and enjoying, an accomplishment that I just had, or a moment that I was just like, I was somewhere very cool. I don't take a moment to sit back and soak it in. And when we have these, pumpkin spices that are a fall thing coming into summer, holidays creeping over one another, we're not taking the time to just sit back and enjoy what we have. And in all honesty, this might make some people feel sad, because when you start to see the pumpkin spice, summer is over. But it's not over yet. We still have a little bit of time. So, let's just keep the pumpkin spice out of summer. Let's keep the Christmas decorations out of Halloween. Let everything have its own time. It's making calendars very confusing when you go into stores and you see these things bleeding over. Let's just make things as simple as we can, please. On to the geek news of the week. And is there a lot of it to talk about this week? Let's start with some of the, I don't want to say smaller news items, but the ones that didn't rock the geek world to its foundation, like one particular news item this week. First up, Keanu Reeves is on board for a Matrix 4. Apparently they didn't do all the kind of Matrix bullet time effects that they wanted to in the first three Matrix movies. So Keanu's coming back for a fourth. I don't know that this is a good idea. I like Keanu Reeves. The John Wick movies are great. I can't wait to see this new Bill and Ted movie that they're going to do. But are we all forgetting how disappointing both Matrix sequels were? The first one, phenomenal. I could watch that movie over and over and over again. The two sequels were a massive letdown. Massive letdown. It was like getting a present that was a huge box, and you thought it was something big and cool, and when you opened it up, it was a dinky. That's kind of how those two Matrix sequels felt. Maybe this is an attempt to redeem the franchise. I don't know. I think it's a massive gamble, because if 4 is shit, that pretty much it's going to shit all over the first one as well. So I don't know if it's worth the risk. Some of the other stars are coming back as well. Hopefully they have a tight script for this one, but based on those other two, I can't say I'm super excited for another trip back into the Matrix. The Disney Plus streaming service is just a couple of months away. It launches November 12th, and it already has a pretty impressive lineup of content. Not only is it going to have, classic movies from the Disney library, which includes Star Wars and now a bunch of stuff from Fox, but it's also going to have killer original content. We got that great lineup of Marvel shows on there, The Mandalorian, which takes place in the Star Wars universe, and now possibly another confirmed Star Wars TV show that is one we've all been waiting for. It's going to be a miniseries, 6 to 8 episodes. I've kind of read different reports on that. But Obi-Wan getting his own TV show with Ewan McGregor reprising the role, which is key because Ewan killed it in the prequels. And you want to talk about a character in the Star Wars mythos that has a lot of stories to tell that we have not been told. Kenobi is one of those. I mean, there's so much to cover with Ben Kenobi that a show for him is perfect. And a little mini series. I mean, I know for years they were trying to get a Kenobi movie off the ground, kind of like they did with Solo and Rogue One. And after Solo somewhat misfired for them, they readjusted their thought process. Having this as a mini series, even if it's 6 episodes, I'm going to assume each one's about an hour. That gives them 6 hours to tell an Obi-Wan Kenobi story as opposed to trying to cram it into 2.5 in the movie theater. So I think this is suddenly the massive silver lining of the Solo movie misfiring, because now Disney shifted gears. They're going to give it to us in this format, and they're going to let that story breathe. Whatever story it is they decide to tell us during whatever time period of Obi-Wan's life, it's going to have time to have all the details in there. Lots of great character development. Could not be more excited for this. And D23, Disney's big expo, is coming up in a couple of days. I'm hoping they will 100% confirm this there. All the reports I read seemed very official, but there has been no official word from Disney yet. So take everything as rumor until the most says it. Hopefully, Mickey spills the guts at D23. Going back to something else we love from our childhood, He-Man is coming back in an animated form. It's coming to Netflix, and the series is going to pick up right where the old animated show left off, and it's being overseen by the one and only Kevin Smith. They have given him the power of Grayskull to oversee the future adventures of, obviously He-Man, Orko, Man-at-Arms, Skeletor. I'm assuming Beastman will make an appearance. All those great characters. Kevin's co-host on their podcast, Fat Man Beyond, Mark Bernardin, is writing on the show. If you listen to that podcast, his geek credentials are deep, and so are Kevin's. So I think this show is in really good hands. I'm very, very excited to check it out when it hits Netflix. It's just great to see this He-Man revival. DC Comics has continued their partnership with He-Man. They've got a new He-Man comic book coming out. There's work being done on getting He-Man back on the big screen in another live-action adaptation. So great to see that. Don't know too much outside of the fact that it's going to pick up from that old 80s cartoon. But with Kevin Smith, Mark Bernardin, and the other people that are involved, I have full faith that it's going to be good. And who knows, maybe we could see Jay and Silent Bob pop up on Eternia. I would be okay with that. I could see Silent Bob and Orko just hanging out front of, I'm sure Eternia has quick stops, right? Now, to the biggest news story of the week in the geek world, and it came out of nowhere. This shocked everybody. Spider-Man, no longer part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Of course, we've seen Spider-Man pop up in Civil War, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, and if you saw Far From Home, that script had a lot of ramifications and was kind of the, epilogue to the events of Endgame. But Sony and Disney, their deal was up. They had this licensing deal that would allow Spider-Man to cross over into the MCU because Sony owns the film rights to Spider-Man and all related characters. And I think that plays an important part here. And now Sony and Disney sat down. Apparently the deal before was Disney getting about 5% of the grosses on those Spider-Man movies. They asked for 50 going forward, and Sony just basically sat back, laughed, and left the room. By all accounts, there was no counteroffer. Sony heard, we want 50% of all the Spider-Man related properties going forward, and Sony was just like, fuck this, pack the car, we're leaving. So the door is still open at some point. I mean, these companies could obviously get back down to the table and renegotiate, but as it stands right now, Spider-Man, easily Marvel's most recognizable superhero. I know the movies have done great things for Iron Man, Captain America, and whatnot, but Spidey is still their big dog, and now he's not going to be part of the MCU. This is not good. This is a huge hole for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You've lost, if you haven't seen Endgame by now, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you a couple spoilers, but you've lost Iron Man, you've lost Captain America. I think Spider-Man was your really great bridge going forward, and now you've lost that. Spidey's going to be off doing his own thing in Sony world, along with Venom, Carnage, Black Cat, Spider-Gwen, if they pull her out of the Into the Spider-Verse movies. All those great characters are all going to be under Sony's banner. And that is also what people have been saying online now, is the fact that Sony didn't even make a counteroffer, reportedly, says to some people that Sony kind of used Disney. Came in, said, hey, can you help us build up this Spider-Man? We tried with Andrew Garfield. We failed. We want to make a new Spider-Man. Why don't you help us build him up and build up interest in his world? And now as soon as they've done that, they're like, thanks. We don't need you anymore. We're going to move on and make Spider-Man movies without you and make a shit ton of money, which even the bad ones have made. Spider-Man 3 was a crap fest. It still made money. So I don't know necessarily that they needed Disney to help them make money, but as far as to get people excited about a future Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and whatnot, him being part of the Avengers films definitely helped. As soon as I posted this on the socials, some people started weighing in. Adam commented that it's all Disney's fault for getting a little greedy. And you know what? That's definitely one side of the argument. There are also other people out there that are blaming Sony for being pig-headed and not negotiating. Alden said it was just bullshit that Spidey's not going to be part of the MCU anymore. Some people, like Aaron, thought it was funny to see one corporation stick it to another much bigger corporation. And it's really funny when you say, yeah, Sony is the smaller corporation in these two, isn't it? But the internet is going back and forth on this one, on who's to blame, how they fix the MCU going forward. What does this mean for the Spider-Man movies going forward? It's been so tied into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How do you pull them out of that without making reference to anything? How is the Marvel Cinematic Universe going to make reference to Spider-Man not being there anymore? It creates massive questions for each franchise going forward. And unless they can get back and sit down and renegotiate this deal, this is going to be problems for both studios going forward. I really don't see a winner in this at all. I think Sony has their hands full trying to build a universe based on the Spider-Man properties, which is what they want to do. They have a second Venom movie in the works. They do want to cross over Tom Holland and Venom. So that's what they want to do. And then, obviously, based on the other films, Spider-Man was going to be a key component for Marvel and what they were going to do in their films. So they're both fuckered right now. And I think they both don't realize how screwed they are. There's a lot of ego here, and there's a lot of success on both sides of the table with people going, we don't need the other one. I kind of think at this point you do. You've tied yourselves to each other in a way that it's going to be really hard for audiences to ignore, and it's going to be hard for hardcore fans to not come in to a future, whether it's an Avengers movie or a future Spider-Man movie, and not have a chip on their shoulder. So I think it's in the best interest of both parties to get their asses back to the bargaining table and just hash this thing out. 50%, in my mind, a little steep. 5%, a little light. Every time Spider-Man showed up in one of those Marvel movies, it was kind of an advertisement. There has to be a middle ground here. They've got to figure this out, I think, for the sake of both franchises. I wouldn't be amazed if cooler heads prevailed, but right now, everybody's Spidey senses is just tingling off the charts and they don't want to talk to each other anymore. I want to know what you think. First off, who's to blame? Sony, Disney, take your side. And which cinematic universe do you think has the bigger problems going forward? Is it the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Spidey Cinematic Universe that they're trying to build at Sony? I want your thoughts on that. You can weigh in. The Scotty Mars Show on Facebook and Instagram, at Scotty Mars on Twitter, and of course the Scotty Mars Show channel on YouTube. That will do it for this week. Next time I talk to you, I will be coming to you from Florida. Cannot wait to be down there for Galaxy's Edge. I just gave you all the socials, so give us a follow there. Don't forget to keep giving us those ratings and reviews. They help grow the show immensely. It's like the most help you can give us is one of those 5-star reviews and a rating, because it just helps push us up those charts and more people find us. So keep doing that. I thank you for all the ratings and reviews so far. And until we speak again, have a great week.